Good morning, everyone. I'm saying good morning because it is morning for me, and it's much earlier than we usually tape the show.
It is. I'm sorry. It's my fault. My daughter has an important medical appointment at 12:30, so I'm kind of stuck. And good morning. And I have a little thing in the middle of my picture, which is driving me bananas, but whatever. Hello. I hope everybody's well. I hope you are well, Carl. This is Natasha Cohen and Carl Wilder, as you guys all know, but I just thought I'd mention it again.
Okay.
So, well, we have the good thing. Well, so far, the only good thing I can see about Trump is that it certainly gives us a subject of conversation for the next 4 years. I mean, we could have a show every day.
Well, there's one good thing that happened.
Okay. We're going to disagree on that, but go ahead.
Maybe we are, but Elon Musk is going over budgets and looking at, all of Doge was one of the, budgets, and this was one of the budgets, and looking for overspending, and found out that Chelsea Clinton has been getting $84 million a year. That kind of corruption, I hope he can root out, because there is no reason for Chelsea Clinton to get $84 million a year from any government agency whatsoever.
No, there isn't. That I'll agree with you.
So if he can find more of that, and I'm sure there's a lot, because the U.S. government is incredibly corrupt, then that would be a good thing. Oh, Orlando Bloom was paid $8 million to sit with Zelensky and take propaganda photos supporting Zelensky. And I've never supported Zelensky. It's been a big money laundering scheme. And now Zelensky has come forward and saying, 100 million of the money you said you gave me, I don't have it. It never came to us. So you guys explain this. He's asking for more money, saying that money that was benchmarked never made it to Ukraine. In the meantime, he bought a $35 million mansion in Florida, among other purchases. So clearly he's getting some of the money.
Sorry about the dead airspace, but Zelensky is another bone of contention between us.
I don't know why you like him. I've never known why you like him. He's a little
I
grifter.
don't like him. I adore him.
I know.
That's
little
not,
grifter.
That's not the same thing.
Okay.
Not at all. I mean, yeah, I think he's amazing, and you don't.
I think he is one of the worst grifters on earth, who's been taking money from the U.S. for personal profit, who's been putting his own citizens into the meat grinder with no care for them. 16-year-old boys, old men, go die. I don't care about you. All because of the Donbass, a region that he vowed to allow to vote whether or not they wanted to be a part of Ukraine or Russia. They voted 3 times. They don't want to be a part of Ukraine. And 3 times he's ignored their votes. He's a dictator. He's a nasty little greedy dictator.
Oh, boy, do we have opposing points of view on that one. But that's all right. We're allowed to have opposing points of view. It makes for things more interesting.
He canceled elections in his country. He's outlawed many religions in his country. He's a nasty little dictator. Do you support canceling elections and outlawing religions?
No, but I don't know how much of that is true. So
you can Google it. It's absolutely true. He's canceled the last 2 elections. He knew he would not be reelected. And there is currently among Ukrainians a recall effort being launched because they see him as the Trump of their country.
Oh, okay. So no, we're not getting the same information.
Well, do you read the U.S. press?
No.
Okay, because that.
Well, actually, I sometimes tune in to CNN, but it's generally to have a deeper view of what it was Trump said.
And CNN often doesn't give you a deeper view. They often give you their spin.
No, I meant if they have a video or something.
Sometimes they do. All right.
Sometimes I missed the video.
I want to go with something this morning because it kind of irked me. Something you posted on Facebook. Let me read the meme. If you oppose DEI, you should have to use the full phrase instead of the letters. Be brave and say, I oppose diversity, equity, and inclusion. Bonus points if you admit which parts of it you don't like. Making it into an acronym transforms it into a thought terminating cliche. From now on, be proud of your opinions, but be specific. So I was specific. The DEI lacked clear metrics and effectiveness. There were no clear benchmarks, making it difficult to determine if it had any effectiveness whatsoever. Many organizations used it for public relations rather than meaningful change. There were legal challenges that were costly, as there were lawsuits charging reverse discrimination. It had a one-size-fits-all approach rather than being tailored to the specific needs of the organizations. It had excessive bureaucracy, causing employees to be overwhelmed by repeated training sessions without tangible results. It excluded certain groups, including older employees and those who did not fit into specific DEI categories, Down syndrome, etc. Mandatory DEI trainings were found to reinforce division rather than reduce it. In other words, they irked people so much, it created more division. That is not to say that I or anyone else does not believe in inclusion. That is to say that the agency had become a nightmare.
Okay, good reply. Thank you for that. I like your cup, by the way. Thank you for that reply. It's very insightful, and you're absolutely right.
I am all for inclusion, and you know that from the people that I work with and hire.
Yeah.
It isn't, but the DEI was no longer about inclusion. It was about bureaucracy and trainings and blah, 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 blah. It didn't have any relevance any longer. Do I think it should have been ended? No. I think it should have been completely redesigned so that it did have the effectiveness that it was supposed to have.
I agree with you there. I very much agree with you.
We've got one we agree on.
We got one we agree on. We've got one we agree on. Now, let's talk about Maro Gaza.
Maro Gaza? Oh my God. I think we're going to agree on this as well. Trump, we know the genocide has been going on and Biden has been paying the bill. That's been going on now. And Trump wants to make it even worse by displacing the native population, sending them to other countries and taking over and turning the Gaza Strip into a resort. And plans for this were actually leaked, not with Trump's name on it, but before October 7th, plans for this had been leaked online, that this was part of the plan in getting rid of everybody in the area. But Trump, I don't know what he's up to, because it looked like he surprised his little buddy from Pittsburgh, Benny, when he made that announcement.
I wish I could comment on it, but I can't. They're like somebody, one of the reporters said, there are so many questions. I liked two headlines yesterday that I felt were important.
Okay.
The first one is Israel gets out of United Nations human rights conventions. I find that to be very interesting.
Yeah, not surprising.
Yeah, but interesting. And the second one was when Trump said that there would be no boots on the ground because once Israel was finished with Gaza, it would just hand it over to Trump. I thought that was interesting as well.
Yeah. The US has no business, and Trump has no business taking over that region at all under any circumstances. If anything, if we can keep the ceasefire solid, then I'm okay with sending a certain amount of aid to help with the rebuilding because it's been devastated. We can do that. We can even help send the Army Corps of Engineers over there to help. I'm okay with that kind of aid. Those people need aid. They've gone through hell. But yes, turning it into a resort for Trump's rich friends is completely one of the most unacceptable things I've ever heard in my life.
Um, just chat for a moment.
Okay, I will chat for a moment. Let's look at some of the other things that are going on with Trump's actions this past week. It's interesting. Not all of it's bad, not all of it's good. Politico has an interesting take. They don't like him at all, but he's going to suspend national electric vehicle charger rollouts. He's not a big fan of electric vehicles, and electric vehicles have pluses and minuses. They don't pollute, but hydrogen is a better choice because the electrical batteries require essentially slave labor to mine the minerals needed to make those batteries. Whereas they've now
Absolutely.
got a hydrogen powered car that emits water as vapor that works so well. And I would like to see that expanded.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree with you, my dear. I agree with you. Um, so, do you know, sometimes I find little things, 1 in 10, 1 in 100, things that I agree with Trump, and it panics me that I could
It
agree with
shouldn't
him.
panic you because what's the expression? Even a broken clock is right twice a day.
True, you're absolutely right. I've noticed, though, that Trump's team is coming up with an interesting saying, which apparently has gone around and it's their go-to saying. I've heard two of Trump's team say it now, and I'm sure it's been said more than that. And the saying is, now I can't remember, but it'll come back
Okay.
to me.
I
What is it? Something is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a new
That is
result.
the definition of insanity. Yes.
Insanity, thank you. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
And that
So
would be
that
the
is,
US elections.
yes, exactly. But that is what the team, the Trump team is using as an excuse for instance, Maro Gaza. There's they're saying that, we tried ceasefires, it didn't work. We tried living next to each other, it didn't work. So I think our solution of taking uh whatever 2,000,000, 200,000, however many Gazans there are, and sending them to Timbuktu and developing their lands into a large result is something that I will agree 100% has never been tried before.
Well, the people of Palestine don't want it tried. They don't want it tried. They don't want to leave. That is their home. And
Yeah, really? No kidding.
I
Uh,
I could feel I can imagine well, for me, I can imagine feeling the same way if I were a part of a group that had deep ties to the land. I'm not. My family has moved around a lot. My grandparents, came over to the US. I'm back in Germany. So we're nomads. I'm a gypsy in that
yes, so
sense.
are we. Yeah.
And I'm
But
okay with
still,
that. But
uh,
I can imagine what that must feel like.
well, you see, I can because I'm Croatian, as you know, half Croatian.
Right.
And Tito, at the end of World War II, took Croatia and incorporated it in a land he called the Southern Land, which was Yugoslavia. That's what Yugoslavia means, Southern Land.
Right.
And so Croatia has been around for, I don't know, I'm not sure exactly. I think it's just over 700 years, even though it was overrun by the Ottoman Empire and different things. Anyway, all of a sudden, Croatians became nothing. Okay,
Yeah.
basically, they became the breadwinners for practically the whole of Yugoslavia. Now, at least we were not displayed. We were just not allowed to have a religion. We were not
Right.
allowed
Stripped of
to
identity.
stripped of identity. but at least we weren't displaced. The idea of displacing everyone, I mean, I think the last time somebody had this kind of idea, he just sent them all to uh, gas chambers.
Well, no, there've been a lot. There've been a lot of displacements since then.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So it wasn't
Uh,
the last time. It was a time out of, unfortunately, many, because the history of the world is filled with murder, rape, mayhem, and displacement. It's so horrible when you start to add it all up.
Eastern Turkey.
Yeah.
What are they called? The people in Eastern Turkey that my friend Elise is one of, and she fights for them continuously. I can't remember what they're called. The people who have been exterminated.
Oh, the
And
Ugars. The
no, no,
Ugars?
no, no, no. I mean, there's these. There's the ones in Syria that have constantly been exterminated.
The Blue
Uh,
Turks, the Ugars, there are many. Yeah.
there are many, many, many.
There's the Kurds, which
Yes,
now have possibility of asylum in Germany. The Go Turks. Um,
yes.
there's so many. The Tuvans, the Azeris.
No, the one that what's his name? Oh, do you know what? My memory is just utterly ridiculous. It just drives me bananas that I can't remember anything. Uh,
Well, you can remember a lot of things, but that's okay. Essentially, some of the native Turkish people have been exterminated and others have been exiled. You are correct.
yeah, they generally have their names that end with the yon, as in Manukyon. Um, ah, you
All
know
right.
what? It's gonna drive me bananas. So you
All
keep
right.
talking. I'm
I'll
gonna
keep
look
talking
for
while you look up the name. Um,
it.
Speaking of America and Germany, which we were not, but I'll go on that while she looks for the name. The top candidate for chancellor, the new chancellor, because, the current one, everybody pretty much hate, is Frederick Merz. And
Armenians.
Armenians, yes. Well, they weren't, yeah, all right. They were considered, yeah, I got it. They were not Turks, but Turks and Armenians.
Yeah.
The Armenians have been exiled, yeah.
Yes. Thank you. I'll
So,
get it.
yeah,
I got
that
there.
was a bloodbath.
Yeah, I got there.
And
So
just, and
that's
I hate that because, and that's all right. You've got an organization that's going to talk about some of this, but that is hating someone and murdering someone simply because of their ethnicity, who they are.
yeah, yeah. That's a familiar theme going
Uh,
on, I
Around the
believe,
world continuously. And it's one that you
continuously.
and I do agree and both object to. There's no reason for that. We can get along. As a matter of fact, if government took their nose out of things and stopped with all the hateful propaganda and divisive propaganda, I think people would find out they have more in common than not, and they would get along. What do we all want? You need time today for your daughter. You want your kids to have a good life. You want to have a good life. You want to have a cup of coffee. I want the same thing. Timothy is in New York, but I want them to have a good life, even though they're in the US. I want my dog to have a good life.
Indeed.
We
And
don't
I
need
don't
this.
and we don't need much. I mean, as you know, Adam and I live in a studio flat and have done so for the last 6 years. Our living space, not counting the hallway and the shower room, is 24 square meters. Okay.
I'm in a room half that size right now, and
Exactly.
I'm happy.
And I'm happy. I was looking at the possibility of getting a bigger flat. But no, I don't need a bigger flat. I have
And the
everything I
prices
need.
right now are so insane in Berlin.
Yeah, but no, we live here and we have Nigel next door and Penelope next door.
Right.
We have Ivan upstairs and we have our daughter in the Hinterhof. Um, and we live in Charlottenburg. I mean, it's perfect. What else would you want? You
Right.
know?
And I think if our simple needs are met and the politicians stop with the divisive propaganda, the world could and would live in peace because there is no reason for this hatred. It's just, can I say bullshit on the air? I just did. Okay. Now
Yeah.
let's go on to Friedrich Merz, the front runner to become Germany's next leader. He is highly concerned about the U.S. He says it is not the U.S. they used to know, and he's considering an alliance with Putin if something does go down, rather than an alliance with the U.S. And the U.S. is pretty much, given Germany the no finger. They don't want to. They're not helpful in any way, shape, or form. They blew up the pipeline that gave us cheap energy. Energy costs are through the roof. I mean, a lot of really bad stuff has come from the U.S. that is wrecking Germany's economy. And I know that you hate Putin, but honestly, if the U.S. decides to, you know, take this any further, I think an alliance with Russia would be the wisest choice for Germany, simply because of our location on the globe.
Okay. Let's not go crazy here. I was just reading yesterday as well a 20-minute report on Sky News. Actually, I wasn't reading it, it was a video. So I was watching the video about how Germany is getting ready for war.
Yeah, I read that as
Um,
well.
yeah. So, yeah, fair enough. To pretend that everything's all right would really be ostrich style. Um, and actually, that is one of the reasons we're not buying anything anywhere. Um, because I've been looking, for instance, half jokingly, only half, at houses in New Zealand.
Interesting. They were pretty dictatorial during the whole COVID nonsense. I was
Yeah,
not a fan
maybe.
of New Zealand during that period.
I'm only a fan of New Zealand insofar as it is so far.
Yeah, yeah, no, I get that. Um,
You know,
Australia is also pretty far. Um, if I were to have to choose between the two, I would choose Australia over New Zealand.
well, yes. I was just worried that Australia might be big enough to be brought into it.
I don't think with their current government that they would be brought into it. And I always keep in mind that during World War One and World War Two, Portugal stayed out of it.
Yeah, I was talking to my sister who is in Lisbon right now. Actually, at this point, in 4 minutes, she will be buying a house
In Lisbon?
in, well, just outside of Lisbon, south of Lisbon.
Well, that's something to consider as well, because their government has clearly expressed the desire not to get involved in this, as has Spain. They're
True,
not going
true,
to play. So,
very true.
so I hope nothing goes down, but I'm keeping my options open.
Geographically speaking, they might not have a choice.
They might not, but they also might. I mean, Portugal is sort of over here in Europe, and
Yeah,
it
I know.
it
Yeah,
manages to stay out of a lot of nonsense as a result of that. They also don't really have much of a military. They don't have they legalized drugs, so that's no longer a criminal offense. Drug addiction went way down once it was legal, interestingly enough. And
oh no, I approve of Portugal. Yes, if
Yeah,
I was assured that Portugal would not be uh, involved, then I would definitely choose Portugal over New Zealand or Australia. I considered South America. I ruled out automatically the northern countries of South America.
yeah, Mexico, yeah.
No, south of Mexico, actually.
Okay. So you rule out Argentina?
I immediately ruled out Argentina.
Why?
I ruled out Argentina because of their stand in the last World War.
Ah, right. They were a haven,
Just a tad.
just a tad, an enormous haven. They
Yeah, I
just,
believe Mengele was there, among
yeah.
other things.
Although the leadership there has changed and their economy is suddenly thriving, which it wasn't under all of these previous depressions and devalued currency, etc. Their economy is doing so well.
Yeah,
Eugenia was from Mar del Plata in the south, so I have a lot of connections to Argentina, both Buenos Aires and Mar del Plata. And people are really happy after years of uncertainty. The economy is thriving, tourism is thriving, beef production is thriving. It's really doing well in so many ways. And I'm happy about that. Those
me
people
too, me
deserve a
too.
break. You know,
Absolutely, absolutely. They've been through hell in the
yeah,
20th century.
multiple depressions,
Yeah, multiple
multiple food
dictators.
shortages, multiple dictators, and now things seem to be changing. And I hope that continues for them. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. I yes, you're absolutely right. Nevertheless, I crossed it off.
well,
Brazil, I crossed off.
yeah, I
I'm sorry
Brazil,
to say,
no, no, no.
automatically.
Yeah, I
I
did
was
too.
left with Chile. The only problem with Chile that I could think of, although it's still a contender, was, I mean, it's more of a geological problem than a geographical or political problem, and that was that if they really do start going crazy with weapons, it might start the volcanoes off.
That's true. That could happen. That could happen in many places.
Yeah,
There are active volcano sites in many parts of the world, including New Zealand.
and Santorini apparently.
Yeah, Santorini is a big one. All right. Now, this Elon Musk is being given a status on Facebook he does not have. And this is interesting to me. Um, People are saying Elon Musk now has access to your bank account, your social security number. These memes are being shared. So I did a deep dive into Elon Musk and what he is doing and can do within the government. And the answer is absolutely nothing. All he can do, his only power is to look at publicly available information and budgets, and the Freedom of Information Act can give you those budgets and you go through them line by line. Anyone can do this, not just Elon Musk, and pointing out spending that he sees as being egregious or corrupt. That's his entire power. He has a team looking at budgets that are publicly available to you and I. He cannot access your social security numbers. He cannot access your bank accounts. He does not have the power to change anything, only to make it publicly known. And I think that's an important distinction because people have given him this mythic superpower where he's going to change the entire United States. And he might, but only through suggestion. Things still have to go through the Senate, the Congress, be signed by president, be challenged by the Supreme Court if it's out of line, etc. But U.S. aid, he pointed out the corruption in U.S. aid, which included 86 million to Chelsea Clinton, 8 million to Orlando Bloom. There was a list of expenditures that were so out of order, and then people saying we never got aid. So the aid never went to the people, it went to corruption, graft, etc. US aid voluntarily, without anyone telling them to do that, laid off all but 300 staff. They laid off thousands of people. Trump didn't dictate it. Musk didn't dictate it. They did it voluntarily after all of these expenditures were pointed out and are currently dismantling the agency on their own. So after all this came out that they weren't actually providing aid, they are dismantling their own agency and asking for immunity from prosecution, which is a very interesting development.
Okay, now, whereas Trump, in my opinion, okay, is insane.
Oh, they all are.
Yeah. Um, I'm afraid I may have to point out that, in my opinion, Musk is evil.
He may be, but he doesn't have the power to make decisions, only to point things out.
Yeah, I don't think he really cares what power he has and doesn't have. I think he'll take whatever he wants in terms of power to do things.
Well, he can't take it because there still are checks and balances. He can want it, he can ask for it, but he can't take it. He can't actually do things. He can only talk about them, point them out.
Now, I'm sure that what you're saying is true, but I do not believe that Musk's only role in the US government is to look at lines of expenditures. I'm
He may
pretty
have
sure.
other roles, but none of them give him power to make decisions. Things still have to go through the system. And the agency that was first was USAID, and their own system is dismantling the agency right now. And they're asking for, you know, immunity. I don't know if they'll get it, but they're asking for immunity. So clearly that agency had a lot going on. And it would not surprise me if another of other agencies had a lot going on. Musk being evil, maybe he is. Bill Gates being evil, absolutely. Bill Gates is one of the most evil people alive, in my opinion. And for some reason, you like him, despite the fact that there's criminal charges against him in multiple countries for his vaccine program that included sterilization of women in India. And, there's so much garbage connected to that man that, and he was a big Epstein buddy and went to the island, 46 times on Epstein's private jet. And I cannot stand Bill Gates. I think he's one of the most evil cretins ever born. Musk is a lightweight compared to the evil of Bill Gates, because Bill
Hmm.
Gates actively does evil things. I will never forget, he invented, or didn't invent, Windows, stole the technology from Apple, which has always been his life. He's never really invented anything. And then he started creating viruses and putting viruses out and connecting them to attachments in order to sell you his Norton antivirus software. That's Bill Gates to me. That sums up who he is. Anything for a buck, and I don't care who I hurt and whose computer I destroy or whose life I destroy.
Okay. I'm rather indifferent to Bill Gates. I don't particularly like him. I, in a sense, admire people who have started from nothing, and you're going to tell me none of them started from nothing. But I tend to admire people who started from nothing.
He didn't start from nothing. His mother was on the board of IBM, and she financed him 300,000 to begin his first company. And 300,000 would be the equivalent of about 3.5 million today.
Yes. So, as I was saying, uh, that my grandfather started from literally nothing to make it big, and so I tend to admire people who do that. My father was a political refugee. You can't get lower than, well, my grandfather was a slave,
Right.
not his father. My mother's father was a slave, and my father left with the clothes he was wearing. That was everything he had to his name when he left. When he rode from Istria um, to Trieste
Right.
uh, at night.
And there
So
are stories like that, just very few.
there are very few, yes. And whereas both of them, both my maternal grandfather and my father, made it big in terms of starting from nothing, and they had wonderful ethics and well, not morals, but ethics and they my father would never have done anything shady in terms of work or things like that. They were
Right.
both atrocious womanizers. I mean, atrocious womanizers. But that didn't fall under ethics. That just fell under fun. So,
Okay.
so things, people who start from nothing and make it big, uh, tend to. I tend to admire people like that. Now, you say, and you're right, that Bill Gates' mother gave him money, Jeff Bezos' parents gave him money, blah,
As
blah,
did his
blah,
Wall
blah, blah.
Street friends. Yeah.
Yeah,
Even
yeah,
Martha
blah, blah, blah.
Stewart, whom I very much admire, came from a Wall Street background and started her empire with investments from her friends.
But they did it.
I'm not arguing that they did it. They, you know, what I'm saying is that when you have a leg up, it's easier to do it. And how many other people would do it if they too had a leg up?
But the other people didn't. They did.
They did, but they had the means.
They may have had the means, but Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos,
Okay,
Elon
Bill
Musk.
Gates started with a ton of money. Steve Jobs did not. So Steve Jobs is one of those success stories you talk about who didn't start with amazing. And he was also fired from Apple once and then brought back to his own company. Steve Jobs was an innovator, and he didn't come from nothing. He came from a decent middle class background, but he did not start with huge investments like Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos or Martha Stewart. He started with very little.
There we go.
That's
So
one.
that's one. Um, I don't know about the others, but you see, people, I mean, Jeff Bezos, who started with money, still had the idea, and the idea is excellent. The idea is amazing, and any blithering idiot could have had the same idea, but he got it, you know?
It actually, the idea, many blithering idiots did have the idea, they just weren't successful. So there were a number of online marketplaces at the time, but they weren't big, they weren't successful. His idea was a little bit different. It was very specific at first. It started with books.
Books, yeah, I know.
And I love books. And I was a big Amazon supporter at the beginning. But then when all the news stories came out about his employees and how badly they're treated and how the people fulfilling the orders can't even have bathroom breaks, and how they have, these cameras and clocks and all these things watching them constantly, then I no longer was a supporter. I love books, but I don't support that type of way of dealing with people. I think it's horrific. He's a modern day slave master with a big plantation. And
Now, I
he's
tot I totally agree with you.
there are a few Amazon places striking, and the police, who are tools of the oligarchs, have been doing the old strike things, coming out and blasting them with cold water, doing these awful things to try to make the strikers go away, and they haven't. Um, so, I hope that his employees get something. This guy's taking so much money. He could give up 8 billion a year, never miss it, and improve the quality of life of his employees this much. I think he's a greedy, selfish psychopath. Did he start with a good idea? Yes, but he's become a monster.
Now, I read on Reddit um, the those things where um, people quit on their first day of work. My question are, why are his employees still employed there if the pay is crap, the hours are crap, the everything is crap, and they have no
Okay.
rights?
There are in the US specifically, there are very few places. That's where the treatment is the worst, to get jobs. Jobs are scarce. Everyone I know in the United States right now is looking for a job, and we're talking experienced, good people, and they go there often out of desperation. Starbucks is, in terrible trouble right now, and they're not making new hires. There's very few places to go. Walmart and Amazon open up in these locations, these towns that are semi-dead where industry has left, and they become the people that you get. This is it. You have Walmart, you have Amazon. That's what's in your town. You don't have a lot of choices. And that's the problem. They're very good at exploitation. And unionization would fix that.
And of course, it's not allowed.
Right. If you have a choice of working for Amazon or not eating, you're going to choose Amazon. And that's the choice many of these people are making. And Amazon does this horrible trick. Full-time employees get health insurance. So they keep most of their warehouse employees at 38 hours a week so that they're never full-time and they never have to give them any form of benefit. They get no vacation. They get no sick days. They get no health insurance. And in the US, that really matters because it's so unaffordable to buy into one of the quote unquote Obamacare plans, that it's devastating to people.
It's fascinating to see how low the US have gone.
It's pretty low. But let's talk about Germany again. Did you see the protest last night?
I did on the news.
The one about X slash
Oh,
Twitter?
oh no, I missed that one. I was watching the protest
Okay,
about the AFD.
apparently they have banned X or Twitter in Germany, which is the number one news source of the world right now. Whether you like Elon or not, it is the number one platform worldwide, and people share things in real time. And the Germans were marching last night demanding access to X and demanding free speech, and it was a truly impressive march. I didn't even know that this was afoot until I saw the protests, masses of people. I can't tell what neighborhood they're walking through. It looks very business, sort of industrial, but they're standing out. They're all carrying signs that say, I can't even read it, Megan's freedom of speech, essentially in German. Freedom of speech is a right. And they want it. Oh, this was in Hanover and Berlin. Okay, Hanover and Berlin were the huge protests.
I don't seem to have that in DW,
I don't know what DW is.
Deutsche Welle.
They probably aren't covering it because news is covered or not covered. I'm sending you an interesting thing here. Best, there we go.
Yeah, and not a word about it on DW. So
Yeah, which is why Twitter is the number one news source, because most protests are never covered by the mainstream press.
I'm going to sneeze.
Okay, you can sneeze.
Pardon me.
All right. Now,
Yeah,
Ron Paul today took some of Elon Musk's reservations. I told you U.S. aid has been shutting down, but the nearly the entire U.S. mainstream media, and this includes the BBC, New York Times, Politico, was funded by U.S. aid, not funded by advertisers or others in the media sphere. U.S. aid was giving massive amounts of money to publications, TV networks, etc. And I think, my belief is that it was to control the narrative. We donate money, like Bill Gates donated 6 million to BBC every year. We donate the money, we control the coverage, we control the narrative. And I would like to see international law intervene and say you cannot donate to, entrenched media. You can't donate. They have to make their own money or go out of business. If they can't sell the ads, they're done. Or if they're not funded, like in Berlin, they're funded by, an unfortunate tax that I very much oppose. But US aid went to the media. They've been buying the stories.
I put Twitter ban March Germany.
Right.
News?
It's February, actually.
No,
Oh,
news.
March. Yeah, you got nothing, right?
Not a thing.
Right. But you're not on X anymore. I could send you the link.
Yeah. No, I put it in Google for the news and
Right.
found nothing.
Exactly. U.S. aid has been giving $6 million a year to Google, among other things. So I doubt you will find anything. That's
But
one.
that's not
That's why I'm
USA.
on X.
That's Twitter.
You're not. If you're on Twitter, you'll find it. Are you on Twitter?
No. I'm USA than Twitter.
USA doesn't go to Twitter.
Twitter ban demonstration Germany. Okay, let me just put Twitter demonstration.
You're probably not going to find it. That's why I'm on X, because I'm watching it in real time.
Yeah, not a thing. Oh,
Yeah,
no. The first one is something about pro-Palestine
yeah.
in 24. And then it's stuff about Elon Musk.
That's what's getting scary about the media. You're not reading stories about what is happening. I would encourage you to get back on X only to see things as they're happening. I'm watching the protests. I'm looking at it right now. Um, you know, if you're not on X, you're not getting the news. And if you're following Caitlin Johnson, um, she's talking today about how civil rights are being systematically dismantled throughout the Western world in the name of protecting information interests, um, you know, controlling the narrative.
Hmm. Interesting
Um,
and troubling.
very troubling. Um, it's interesting that the White House press secretary yesterday morning was showing all of these apartment buildings on the Gaza Strip that had been leveled, but never once mentioned how or what caused it. So again, Trump is no better than Biden or his people. Both of them are trying to control the narrative. See if you can find the protest yesterday morning of against Netanyahu in front of the White House by Jewish people.
Yeah,
I, I
I
have the
don't
feeling
know.
you'll never find that. Um, I watched it again in real time. They hate Netanyahu. As you know, the rabbinical Jews have said that the Torah says they cannot have a homeland. They want Israel to cease to exist. Before Israel sort of set itself up, they lived in peace. Christians, Muslims, and Jewish people were in peace in Palestine. It was the state of Israel that started to create the division with the Nakba. And these Jewish people flew, in many cases, in great expense to Washington, D.C. to stop. They want to stop the forced draft into the Israeli army. They want Netanyahu to resign. Their signs are everywhere. And it's interesting seeing them wearing their very traditional clothing because, as you know, they are a very traditional people. And doing political protest because that isn't something this group has engaged in very much in the past.
Um, to have to join the army is something that has been done by Israelis forever since it was created. My
Right.
friend Leora joined the army,
And I
not
think it's
joined
one
the
of the
army.
most immoral things ever. No one should have to join an army ever under any circumstances. The goal of a military is to murder other people. If you don't want to murder other people, stay away from the military. The military is a terrorist squad. All military is a terrorist squad. They don't bring peace. They don't bring goodness. They don't bring happiness. They don't bring health. Young people are sacrificed, murdering other young people. I'm absolutely against all military everywhere.
Well, yes. No, really, actually, is what I meant to say. Can I point out very kindly that without military in the Second World War, um, I wouldn't be married to Adam.
That's not true. Without military, there would not have been a Second World War.
I agree with you. But then we have people like the nice little man with the mustache who decides to
But
do,
without military, he never would have had the power to do that.
of course, but he took it upon himself to actually militarize a country that was not supposed to be militarized.
Right. That's why if the military had said, if the people, the young men had said no, it never would have happened. If
Yes,
there were
but
no
the chance,
military, it could not have happened.
that's true. But of course, when the choices are either join the military or die, somehow, or die right now, somehow quite a few people join the military.
And that was horrible. But who was shooting them? Other military. So if there were no military, there would have been no one to kill them if they didn't
No,
join the military.
it could have been the police.
Uh, could have been, but it wasn't. It was the military. I
Yeah.
don't think that the German police at the time, remember the police, it took them a long time to get the police involved in the brown shirts. The police were the first line of resistance. And women were the second line of resistance in Germany at the time. Without the military, there would have been no one to shoot these guys. Then there wouldn't have been death if you don't join the military. Military should not exist anywhere. End it worldwide, and we would have peace.
True, of course, but that's slightly utopian.
I am utopian.
That's slightly utopian because you will
It's not only
always.
slightly, it's completely utopian. And I am all for utopia. I think we could achieve it if we got rid of the majority of our political agencies and all of the military.
Do you know what would create this utopian world that could exist?
Tell me.
Unite against a common enemy.
But then again, we need an enemy. I don't want enemies. I want friends.
Okay, but if we were attacked from outer space, we would all join together, just like they did in Independence Day. Now that's utopian.
Yeah, I'm not terribly worried about that. There's so much happening on the planet that an attack from another galaxy is Star Trek to me. Could it happen? Sure. If it happens, then we'll deal with it then. Right now, I'm not worried about it. It hasn't happened in the lifetime of the Earth. So I don't think it's just suddenly going to manifest.
Well, you say this, but the Church of Scientology would like to differ.
Well, the Church of Scientology is another organization.
Okay, but even animals clan up against other animals of the same species. If you take meerkats,
right.
Meerkats will attack. Meerkats are in clans, matriarchal clans, where there is one female meerkat that regulates the whole population of her clan. They will attack other clans.
I am not a meerkat. And I think the great thing about being human is that we can see things and do things differently from animals.
Yes, we do. We do things much worse than animals
We do, but we don't have to.
Yeah, but it's in our genes. I mean, it's been around since well before the cavemen, because it's been around since we were chimps, since we were monkeys.
Well, we weren't monkeys, but we probably had common ancestors, yes.
Yeah, but you see what I mean. Yeah, so it's always been around. That there is no, it's in the genes of every animal, of even plants do that. Well, they don't unite, but plants will kill other plants.
Yeah. But again, we're not plants. All right.
I know.
You want to have your mind blown? The Wall Street Journal today. Um, it's just, out. It's like 4 a.m. or something in New York. But it's out. Um, they listed all of the U.S. aid things in addition to the ones I mentioned, like Chelsea Clinton. The American taxpayers are giving money to Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria. It has over 100,000 employees every year that give away more than $40 billion. They gave money for electric vehicles in Vietnam. They gave money to a transgender clinic in India. 1.5 million to a Serbian LBQT group to advance LGBTQ in Serbian workplaces. They spent 164 million to support radical organizations, including QAnon. They gave 122 million to foreign terrorist organizations that are on our terrorist list. They gave millions of dollars to Hamas, 2 million for sex changes in Guatemala, 20 million to produce Sesame Street and control the content, 4.5 million to Kazakhstan for weapons, 10 million to Al Qaeda, 7.9 million to teach Sri Lankan journalists to avoid binary gendered language, 1.5 million to promote LGBTQ, whatever it is, advocacy in Jamaica, 1.5 million to rebuild the Cuban media, 1.5 million for art inclusion of people with disabilities in Belarus, 3.9 million for LGBT causes in Macedonia, 8.3 million for an equity and inclusion education program in Nepal. None of this money was audited. None of it was followed up on to see how it was spent. And that's in addition to the money to the U.S. media, to Chelsea Clinton, to Orlando Bloom for posing with photos with Zelensky, etc. That does not sound like what U.S. aid was designed to do. Do I think
Well,
it
it
should be?
does actually.
No, that's not aid. They're supposed to provide aid to people who need it to eat. That is the program.
Well, LGBTQ in Serbia sounds like a good donation to me, and
It doesn't
Macedonia.
sound like a good donation to me because we should not be doing that in Serbia. Also, we never audited anything, so we don't know where the money went, actually. There's no audits, there's no checkbacks. The money is given and then it's ignored. Let me see, is there even an LGBTQ program in Syria?
Mm. Serbia, don't check Syria.
I'm sorry, in Serbia.
I'm pretty sure there isn't one in Syria, that's for sure. Yeah,
Serbia. Yeah, and it's been enshrined in the Constitution of the Republic for Syria for decades.
Serbia,
Uh,
Serbia.
Serbia. Yeah, Serbia, Serbia.
Yeah,
So
capital
uh,
Belgrade.
let me look for the agency that got it.
Yeah, but yeah.
The agency that got it. Okay. Their director makes an equivalent of 500,000 US dollars, as do his two assistants. So essentially, it went to people themselves. They created an organization, they got money from the US, and they profited from the money, which is what we see happening again and again and again. It didn't do anything, it didn't advocate, it didn't propose any legislation, it didn't change or do a single thing.
Ah, well, that's another issue, indeed.
Which this is the problem with aid to just about everybody is we need follow-up and audit. I don't believe in dismantling everything. I believe in follow-up and audit. Was it spent the way it was supposed to be spent? I was a big worker for and volunteer for food bank programs in the US. and I raised just under $1 million for the San Francisco Food Bank. But I included the proviso that it be spent directly on food purchases, because I looked at previous fundraising efforts in different food banks around the country and found that when massive amounts of money went into the agency, massive amounts of raises were given to the people working there. And the director was already making $250,000 a year. This was 2008 or something. And I didn't think she needed to be paid more. So I included a specific proviso that it could not go for wages. And they accepted the money. And then I got several queries about, would this fall under that? Would this fall under that? Would you sue us if we did this? And my answer each time was, no, it would not fall under that. And yes, I would sue you.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
And the World Economic Forum. We've been funding them as well, including private jets for the World Economic Forum members. So I'm glad that Elon is exposing this. I don't want everything to be dismantled and torn apart. I want everything to change and get honest, honorable, and transparent.
I agree with you 100%. I would like very much to see everything transparent, and not just in the US, but all over the world. That would be wonderful. Nevertheless,
Zelensky gave the receipts today to prove that Ukraine only received 75 billion out of the 177 billion in US aid. So he turned over the books. Are they legit? I don't know, but that's his claim, and that's on CNN and other places this morning. That he only received 75 out of 177 billion in US aid, which wouldn't surprise me. I've always suspected this was a massive money laundering organization. We spent, again, there's more. Boy, it keeps coming out. Thank you, Wall Street Journal. 90 million was given to the lab in Wuhan to develop COVID-19. 68 million was given to Klaus Schwab in Germany. He's like you know who he is, don't you?
No, I'm sure you'll tell me.
Oh,
and
Klaus Schwab.
I've heard the name.
He's a horrible man. He's the one who's behind everyone must eat bugs. You will own nothing and be happy. He believes in total control of the entire world, as do most of the World Economic Forum members. This is fun. Angelina Jolie got $20 million.
For what?
For supporting Black Lives Matter in the press.
Well, I support Black Lives Matter.
Where's my 20 million? But apparently they needed a celebrity to speak out on their behalf after the Black Lives Matter organization, the woman who was running it, took all of the donated money and again bought houses for herself, 3 of them. So then Angelina Jolie got money and to say that they were good. Oh my God.
Keep going.
It is fun. 70% of Americans didn't know that US aid existed. Wow. It's really a lot of grift and graft. And I'm glad about this. I want Elon Musk to expose this. Do I ever want him to have the power to do things? No, right now he does not. But exposing this kind of stuff is good.
Yes. What other stuff is being let out?
That's it that I found so far. Wall Street Journal hasn't put another line forward.
Yeah.
There's nothing else in the scrolls. So it's really interesting. 3,500 direct employees were laid off this morning right away. And they're doing it. They're dismantling and asking for immunity. They're saying we're voluntarily letting all of this go, and we don't want to be criminally prosecuted. We'll see. I don't know. Yeah, was it horrible? Yeah. Did it spend a lot of money? I have the feeling that the people in charge of the organization were not really in charge, and they were taking their marching orders from someone else. So I'm not sure if the bureaucrats should be criminally prosecuted or if it should be someone else who was overseeing.
Where did USAID get their money from?
U.S. government taxes.
Oh, okay. How
Yeah,
much money was USAID getting?
uh, 40 billion a year plus special grants and throughout the year for different programs. So it ended up being between 40 and 100 billion a year.
Okay.
John Kennedy is going to be speaking about it today. John Kennedy is the Kennedy most people like, not Robert F., which is mixed.
Okay. Another question. No,
Yeah,
not a question, actually, more of a statement, of course. What I meant to say is if during the next 4 years, what Trump does is put the American government back into, working conditions,
that's a
that,
big if.
yeah, you're kidding. That would be amazing. I would be his strongest supporter.
If that happens, and that's a big if for me, because I believe that Trump and Musk are both operating out of selfish motivation. Is some of what they're
Yeah.
doing good as a result? Yes. Exposing corruption is good, but I don't believe for 1 minute that they're doing it because they care about the American people or anyone else. I think they're two of the most selfish, narcissistic human beings on the planet.
Yes.
So, can narcissistic, selfish people do good? Sometimes, unintentionally.
Yeah. It would be amazing if that's what they end up doing, putting the government right.
I would love to see that. I don't
Is
have faith in it, but I'm going to wait and see. I'm not going to condemn anything yet.
is Trump talking about Maro Gaza to divert from what he's actually doing?
I don't think so. He often does that, but he usually does that through irrational tweets. This was press conference, and I could be wrong, but his strategy in the past has been, I'll tweet something outrageous. Everyone will talk about that. But in the past, when he gave a press conference and spoke about something, it turned out to be legit and not a diversion. So we'll see. I'm not sure.
Because I found that a lot of news articles were saying that exactly. Is the
It's
Maro
possible.
Gaza a diversion?
It
Because
is
something,
possible that something more nefarious is going to happen. It's certainly possible. I would not rule it out, but based on his past way of diverting people, it would be out of character. But he
well,
could
yeah,
strategy.
he's done quite a few things out of character lately.
He might
So,
have a new strategy. Um,
yeah,
60 Minutes released the actual transcript of the heavily edited Camilla interview. They were forced to do so,
oh, we
and
lost you
she
for a
looks like a
second.
blithering idiot. 60 Minutes released the transcript of the unedited Camilla Harris interview. They edited it and they used AI
Okay.
to help her be coherent and make sense. And apparently, the unedited version makes her look like a blithering idiot, which is kind of what I always thought she was.
Okay. Okay. So that's interesting. But then again, that could have been the an even more AI edited version.
No, no, this is the actual on camera thing. They used AI to make her look good, and they were forced to release. There was a lawsuit, and they had to release the unedited, un-AI, where she stammers and stutters and giggles and, says, well, I hope for the best. And, they really worked hard. And they also got money from US aid, which could have been why they edited that.
60
Now,
Minutes got
here's,
money from
yeah, a lot of it. A
okay.
lot of it. Yeah. Um, And Pfizer is their other big sponsor. That tells you a lot. Drug companies sponsor the news in order to buy the coverage they want. Um, One thing that I want released completely and totally, and I don't think it will ever happen, are the Epstein and the Diddy client lists. The US government knows what they are, and I think releasing the Kennedy stuff is a distraction to try to make us forget about both of those. They're very current and they matter. They matter a lot. If Epstein was blackmailing people and Diddy was blackmailing people in order to get people to vote a certain way or behave a certain way, we should know that. And we're
Well,
not seeing it. I mean, Ghislaine
well,
Maxwell is in prison for selling young girls to no one.
okay. Epstein's dead, which
Right.
doesn't, of course, make it okay. And Diddy's house burned down.
Yeah. Two
So
things I think happened on purpose.
you think? Oh,
I
funny
think.
that. Yeah, funny that. Yes.
But they still have a lot of information from Diddy's house that was seized before the burn down. And I want every name to come out. You cannot prosecute someone like Ghislaine Maxwell for selling prostitutes or girls that she made into prostitutes into no one.
Mm-hmm.
This is a
Indeed.
big this is a big area of corruption. And yeah, the financial corruption matters, but that matters too. And the fact that it hasn't come out makes me wonder who in the Trump administration, including himself, might be on that list.
Well, for one thing, I'm pretty sure he's on Epstein's list.
I think he
Okay.
is. I'm not
Yeah,
sure, but I think he
obviously.
is.
Yeah. Diddy may be less, but definitely on Epstein's list. I mean, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be that difficult to find a picture of Epstein and Trump next to each other,
Well, yeah,
hugging.
There's one picture that has been found so far. But the problem with that is there's pictures of Epstein with Nancy Pelosi, with Kamala Harris, with Pocahontas, what's her name? Elizabeth Warren, with Bernie Sanders. Epstein was a political player, and there's pictures of him with literally everyone in DC, many of whom never were on his jet and never on his island. So if the picture was taken in Washington, D.C., it doesn't give us any real information. It might implicate, but it doesn't give us real information. We need the pictures from the island itself and the list of clients.
I maintain that knowing Trump's or
History.
having, yes,
I think it's
having
very
heard
likely he's on the
Trump
list.
himself, yeah, having heard Trump himself
And the way he
talk
talks about
about
women,
exactly.
even how
Yeah.
he talked about his own daughter, which I thought was one of the most horrible things on earth, to talk about how sexy his daughter was when she was 14.
And that he would do her if she wasn't his daughter.
Yeah, that was gross. And that makes me think that he is on the list. But,
I think towards the top of the list,
well,
buddy.
see, here's the interesting thing about that. Trump was never on the Epstein jet. Did he fly his own jet there? Very possibly. But he was never on the Epstein jet, whereas Bill Clinton was 47 times. And I think this is one of the few bipartisan acts in that so many on both sides are on this list. That's why it's being kept quiet. Could Trump ruin Clinton? Sure. But he'd also ruin himself. Could Clinton ruin Trump? Sure. He'd also ruin himself. I think that's why this hasn't come out. It's a bipartisan list of corrupt individuals who visited these women, and there's no excuse for it. Prince Andrew is one of the few names that came out, and that was due to a lawsuit.
Yeah. A lawsuit that I don't entirely agree with, but that's another point.
See, I'm okay with that because it did force their hand with Prince Andrew, who was a real creep.
Yeah, I think he was more of a real idiot.
And a creep. I mean, they were 14, 16-year-old girls.
Yeah, whereas I wasn't sexually active at 16, I know at the time in the 80s, almost everybody I knew was.
But it's one thing to be sexually active with your peers. It's something else to be enslaved to Jane and Jeffrey and forced to have sex with someone like Prince Andrew. They're two
Of
completely
course,
different things.
of
Yeah,
course, they are.
I'm 16-year-olds with other 16-year-olds, go for it. Yeah, I did. But with old men and young women, I think it's just disgusting.
Well,
Speaking
first of
of
all, he wasn't that old
Prince
at
Andrew,
the
yeah, he
time.
was in his 40s.
Yeah, but and another thing, I'm not condoning it, okay, in any way, shape, or form.
Me too.
I'm not condoning it in any
Me
way,
too.
shape, or form. But um, to be fair, she probably did gloat to everyone saying that she bagged a prince, which she did, and there's nothing wrong with gloating about that.
I
Okay.
I don't know that she did gloat. That came out after the lawsuit. There were these quote stories, and she claimed not to know any of these girls that she supposedly told the stories to. So that was not proven. That is possible, but not proven. I don't. This dog has never barked since I've known him, but something's got him today. He's
I
hearing
can hear.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird.
All right. Here's a funny, horrible story. There is a man from Ireland who went to the US. He pretended to be a leprechaun. He's very short. He's got a little scruff of beard and big, bushy red eyebrows and red hair. And he fooled 40 women in the US to having sex with him in exchange for a pot of gold they never got.
Fair enough.
Oh, it's horrible, but it's funny. 40 women were that gullible.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, hat off to you, young man.
Ah, you know, public
Yeah.
service announcement. Purina just recalled 6,000 pounds of dog food due to salmonella contamination and dog deaths. So if you've got Purina in your house, check it.
No, we have. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I've been a good girl. I have made a point of looking at what we buy to see whether or not it was American made.
Good for you.
And we're feeding the cat with Royal Canin, which is French.
Ah, okay.
So, because Hills, which is very good, is American.
And they have lower standards when it comes to contamination and other issues.
Yeah. So we're
The French
feeding
have
the.
very high standards when it comes to pet food. My guy, I make his food. He gets, meat, sweet potato, other vegetables, and bone meal because he couldn't handle any pet food, any of it.
Yeah, so he gets Royal Canin. So it's not American.
That's good. I know that in Paris, Yasmin feeds Gemma Parisian-made dog food, and Gemma seems to be doing well on that.
Yeah. Tariffs. What's the story?
Tariffs? Oh, Mexico and Canada caved, made a deal. They're not happening.
Yeah. What kind of deal did they make?
That is unclear. We know that the tariffs were suspended because they made a deal. I have not been able to find details about this deal. So I don't know exactly what's going on. I can't speak to that.
Oh, okay. What kind of deal do you think they would have done?
I really don't know. I've been thinking about it and thinking about it, and I don't know. Um, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what he wanted with those tariffs. I don't know what he expected. I don't know what he negotiated for, and it has not come forward. Yes, there's supposed to be a press release about it today. We'll know next week.
Good. There hasn't been a deal with China.
No, there hasn't. China's fighting back.
Yeah. Does is Trump aware of how much the U.S. imports from China?
Um, I don't know. If he were aware of that, I think he might reconsider his decision, or maybe he's trying to force the issue with to make U.S. manufacture more and stop importing so much. No, I'm reading the stories about it. I'm listening to his press conferences, which are mildly incoherent, and I can't figure this one out. I really can't. Sometimes I get a sense of what he's going for. In this one, I have no idea. And China owns an enormous amount of U.S. farmland. They're responsible for U.S. food production in a big way, as is Bill Gates. He does the GMO foods. China does the organics in the U.S. So if either one of them decide to stop farming, the U.S. is going to have the Hunger Games.
Interesting. Um, Canada, 51st state.
I think that's BS. I think that was a distraction. Get them talking about the 51st state and they won't look at the tariffs, which I don't want to go into detail about. I think that was very much a distraction.
Yeah, it just, first of all, there are several states in Canada. They're not called states, they're called
They're provinces.
Provinces, thank you. I lived in Canada for 2 years. I can sing "Oh Canada."
I can't, and I've never lived there.
Yeah, but yeah, so there's different provinces. So it would be the 51st, 52nd, 53rd, etc. You can't just group Canada into one state. That would be silly.
Right.
Dead air. Yeah.
Dead
Okay.
air. Well, you had coffee and I took a breath. It's okay. It wasn't dead for long. All
How
right.
dare you take a breath?
All right. Looks like billions of dollars have been stolen at US aid and other agencies, much of it going to the fake news media as a payoff for creating good stories about the Democrats. The left-wing rag known as Politico seems to have received 8 million. The New York Times received money. Who else did? This could be the biggest scandal of all times, perhaps the biggest scandal in history. The Democrats can't hide from this one. Too big, too dirty. That's Trump's tweet this morning. Now, it is my belief that every time Trump tweets, he wants you to look at one thing and not another. So something else is going on.
Yeah.
Now, yes, this corruption is bad. This corruption is horrible. This spending is out of control. But something else is going on in DC today, and I'm going to try to find out what it is, because every tweet means look here, not here.
Absolutely. Where could you look for it?
Well, I have, do you remember those old news filters they used to have when it was AOL and you could filter through news stories around the world? Reddit has something similar. And you can do a search for news stories on several different platforms that might, does not always, get you facts. I try to look for what does the document say, not what does the media say.
Okay.
The Black Hawk helicopter remains were pulled today, and the black box was quote unquote irreparably harmed, so we cannot hear any of the audio from that.
No.
You
Gosh.
did you watch the video of that helicopter flying into the plane?
I did. I watched all the videos.
It looked intentional.
I told you, very much so. From the first video I saw, where it literally, I mean, let's put it this way. If it wasn't intentional, it was perfect aim.
Yeah.
Because you have to think, a plane is not stationary.
No.
Okay, at all. So in order to hit it in the middle, like it did, you really have to calculate a lot of things and aim very carefully.
Exactly.
It
Um,
is infinitely easier to go up by 20 meters or down by 20 meters and barely miss it, but miss it.
I have flown both a small plane and a small helicopter out of Teterboro in New Jersey because I had a friend who was a pilot who taught me. I got my pilot's license, which, I never could afford a plane, but I flew his upon occasion. And those small planes have incredible maneuverability. In a second, I could make that dive and miss the plane, literally that fast. So something's going on there. Will we ever get the truth? I don't know. In other breaking news, oh, this is going to be a fun couple of weeks. Johnson and Johnson is being sued for adding cancer-causing chemicals to sunscreen, the same cancer they profit from treating.
Oh, I knew about talcum powder, which, by the way, I generously used on both of my children when they were small.
My mother
And
probably did
Johnson and
too.
yeah, and Johnson and Johnson, of course, because I went for the best, you know. So
It's starting to feel like the entire world is the mafia.
you may
Or
not be
the
wrong.
mafia actually has more morals, I think. I've worked
I
for the
was going
mafia.
to say, how dare you? You know, the mafias
Oh
has
my
strict
God.
rules.
Well, you know who George Soros is, don't you?
Who?
George Soros?
George Soros. No.
Yeah. He has been involved in the US government and giving money to politicians to try to, make things happen for years. He primarily works with Democrats, but like all corrupt oligarchs, he works with anybody that he can, throw a few bucks to who will do what he wants. Alex Soros was very close to everyone in the Biden administration. That's his son. George Soros received 260 million from USAID.
Huh. I would have thought it would have gone
260
the other way.
million. Well, then it went the other way. He got that. He used it gave it to the politicians to vote the way he wanted so he could get more money from the system. It's like this big, oh my, well, uh, 6,000 individual journalists and 700 TV newsrooms around the US received USAID money.
Uh, they don't need aid.
They don't need aid, but here's
Yes. Sorry, I know you're reading, so I should say something because we're going to have dead air. Do they list the names of those people or the news stations, or is it just general? So it's probably just general. You seem absolutely enthralled with what you're reading, like in complete disbelief.
could you hear that?
No, I didn't hear a word in last minute.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was trying to share. They made a compendium of 6,000 journalists, all saying the exact same words at the same time on the TV news around the country. So all saying the same words, talking about how they're preventing false news, when in many cases they are the authors of false news. Um, Marco Rubio came out with a statement this morning. He's up early saying
Oh, you're fading in and out.
that
So I don't know what Mark Rubio said. But it'll come back in a minute, I'm sure. Although, to be fair, I knew Fox News was a little bit corrupt. I'm not entirely, well,
UFO
and I'm pretty sure CNN is corrupt. But then when we say
wants
corrupt,
to relocate
I mean CNN was
per
for is Democrat and
Okay.
Fox News is Republican.
Uh,
And you're still kind of going in and out. I'm now there's the other ones, ABC, NBC, CBS, and all the. Oh, there we go. You seem to be back. Yeah, you've been
okay.
gone for about a minute. So we
I'm
only
sorry
got to
about that.
Mark Rubio made a statement, and that's as far as we got.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Marco Rubio made a statement that the U.S. will now only relocate Gazans temporarily, and they would be welcome to come back and work in the new resorts once the reconstruction is complete.
Okay. So basically, we're going to take your land. You're going to be relocated somewhere while we build the resort, and then you can come back and work and slave in that resort that is actually on your land but doesn't belong to you anymore.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're all on the same page. Okay.
Yeah. This may be why Trump was madly tweeting early this morning, because Rubio was out there making statements. Every tweet is a distraction.
How could you possibly distract from that?
Well, pay the U.S. press to cover what you want, which is what they have been doing, but that's over now. Uh, so who knows? Every political candidate in the last election received money from AIPAC, including Donald Trump. The only one who did not was Jill Stein.
Huh.
So Donald Trump is part of this AIPAC scandal.
Gee, really? That comes as a total surprise.
Not to me.
I'm kidding.
I know you are. He was part of it. He took money.
The only thing that troubles me, well, no, the only thing, one thing that troubles me out of the 1,000 thing that trouble me about the U.S. right now is no boots on the ground is what he swore. Okay. I'm not entirely sure how he thinks the Gazans are just going to mosey on over to another country. Because earlier we were talking about unite against a common enemy.
Right.
Well, I think it's pretty safe to say that the minute the first Gazan is removed from Gaza to built Maro Gaza, I think that the entire planet, bar Israel and the United States, has found its common enemy.
Yeah, but I don't want enemies. I want everybody to sit down at a table and work things out. I don't want enemies. Even really bad ones who've done this.
Yeah.
I don't want these.
You know, you know me. I, I don't know. I have hard time expressing myself because that would be a case where every single country in the world, from Japan to Chile, okay, would come together, except for US and Israel, and say, I don't think you can do that. You know?
Well, we'll see. I would like to do that. But I don't know that anyone will ever actually try to, go for world peace, because war profits too many people. I mean, you look at who makes money in Washington, D.C., almost everybody, including Bernie Sanders, has big stock investments in the war machine. And that's why they vote for the wars, because they make money from them.
Well, yes, but you said earlier I think you said earlier that that uh, between the U.S. and Russia, you would rather see Germany associate with Russia.
It would, yeah.
Well, if Israel and the US start kicking out the people in Gaza, I have the feeling that you will get your wish, because I think that the entire planet will really turn around and say, no, I'm sorry, you really cannot get rid of people. Now, you, s- it- we had the issue with uh, Uganda, when
Uganda, yes.
half the population destroyed the other half of the population.
Yep.
And like I was talking, we had Armenians, we had the poor Christian people in Syria who were, but these are all, nobody did anything because these were all within a country and didn't include any other people from any other country.
Right.
This is not the case.
No, this is not the case. And I
No,
don't
no, you
want
go
a
away.
world war. I'm
Well, that's where we could get one. And
I
we could,
know we could. I don't want it. I don't support it. I support everybody. I said at the beginning of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, lock those two nuts in a room with a bucket in the corner, send food through a slot. They work it out. When they're done working it out and they've signed a treaty, they can come out. That's how I feel about all politicians. You rein them in, you make them work it out, because ultimately, after all these young people have died, which is what happens, and all these families and all of these children have died, they do work it out. That's what treaties are. Start with the treaty, not the war. The war is only to make money. That's what wars do.
yeah, well, it may be very much that the Third World War will be started when the world unites against the US.
I don't want the world to unite against the US. I want the US to become rational. And
Hmm.
I know they haven't been rational since Kennedy has died, but that's what I want. I can dream. I can dream, right?
Well, you say since Kennedy died, I mean, Bay of Pigs?
I didn't say everything Kennedy did was rational. I said since Kennedy died, there's been no rationality.
That's true.
Kennedy had a certain amount of rationality. Was he right about everything? No. But I believe that he had good intentions most of the time. He was not a narcissistic sociopath, which is what we're largely dealing with now. Um, so that's my take on that. And since then, we've had primarily narcissistic sociopaths, except for Jimmy Carter, who was a kind and gentle, sweet man who got nowhere because he wasn't a narcissistic sociopath.
Indeed. And I would even go that since Roosevelt, actually, I'd go further back than that.
Um, well, we'll
You
see.
know?
We'll see what happens. I Another thing just comes out this morning. Trump's approval rating among Democrats has risen.
Okay, that one's a new one on me.
Yeah, he's has a 49% approval rating with Democrats compared to 21% before the election.
It may be, okay, but I'm just saying that it may be that the Democrats are approving of him because he's doing things so incredibly insanely that they're approving of the way he's digging his own grave.
That isn't usually how approval ratings work. Um, so I don't agree with you on that. I don't think he's digging his own grave because the oligarchs protect each other. You notice Trump got a conviction. Is he in jail? No, the whole thing was whitewashed ultimately.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, I
And that
noticed.
that is the way it always goes. The oligarchs protect each other. So I don't think he could dig his grave if he tried. I don't think no matter what he does, something bad will happen. If you remember Hitler, no one took him out. He committed suicide.
Indeed.
Although Russia has recently said he did not commit suicide, that the body that was found, the DNA proves it was a 13-year-old female, not Adolf Hitler. And there's a big theory, and it could be true, I have no way of knowing, that he was another one that went to Argentina. Is it possible? Yes. Is it proven? No.
It is true, though, that it was the Russians who got there first and took the bodies.
It was the Russians who got there first, and they released the DNA, or what they say is the DNA. I never really trust any government. What they say is the DNA of a 13-year-old girl and not Adolf Hitler.
I don't want to be mean, but trying to pass off a 13-year-old girl as a 50-something-year-old man is interesting.
Which makes me wonder if it's true. If it is true, why it happened. Big mystery there. And why is Russia releasing this information now and not then? Is this all bullshit, politically motivated? Maybe. Question everything. We're in a period of time where everything we hear has to be questioned.
I have to say, we're definitely living through an interesting period of time. It is my unbelievable hope that we are just living through 4 interesting years and everything will go back to normal in 4 years.
It won't, because there hasn't been normal for the past 4 years.
Yes, but
I mean, the U.S. has been collapsing these past 4 years. Homelessness has tripled. The tent cities in the U.S. I've got friends in New York. I have a friend in San Francisco who has changed the date of a theater engagement to 4 p.m. because none of his friends will go out after 7. When it's dark, they won't go out in San Francisco. The crime has gotten so high.
Yeah, well, something needs to happen with the U.S. and something has needed to happen because the infrastructure. Oh, I like the getting rid of the Department of Education. Yeah, because education in the U.S. is doing so well.
Well, Jimmy Carter created the Department of Education. And ever since he created that department, education has sunk lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. Is the Department of Education responsible for that? I don't know. Did they improve education? Not in the least. So it was managed by the states before Carter put the Department of Education into place.
Now it's managed by the cities.
Well, now it's actually managed by the feds.
No,
mandatory
education
testing,
is not. Education is not on a federal level. If education was on a federal level, then everybody would have the same kind of teaching, but they don't.
Well, what they've done, they haven't given them the same teaching or the same textbooks. They've given them the same tests. The mandatory testing is all the
SATs, yeah.
did. So education in the U.S. is at an all-time low. I mean, there was a man on the street interview saying, the Queen of England died. What country was she responsible for? And all of these people in Los Angeles, person after person, say, I don't know, like America, Canada, Nigeria. I don't know what country. They didn't even know that England was a country. That's how poor the education system is.
Yes, there's a wonderful story going around Facebook about this guy coming in with a Danish passport and the passport controller telling him it's not a real country.
Oh, God. Well, I've gotten a lot of hassles from passport people because of other countries I've visited. So, I've been grilled by the U.S. when I go back to visit my mother because they look at my passport and they don't like what they see.
Yeah, indeed. But yeah, maybe it would be good if the United States got back on track. It would be actually miraculous. It would be really nice if it got back on track without destroying the rest of the planet.
That would be great. I would love
great. I would love that. And yes, If that happened, then yes, Trump would be known as the greatest president that ever lived.
And that is the biggest if I think I've heard in ages.
You think?
I
But
do.
he wants to be known as the greatest president that ever lived. Mr. President, if you want to be the best president that ever lived, the greatest president that ever lived, then turn inside, look at the US, look at the education, the infrastructure, and the housing, the health level,
Oh,
and everything, and do something about that. And
yeah.
then you will be known as
And
the greatest president that ever lived.
even just solving the health crisis would be enormous. Do you know that most bankruptcies in the US that lead to homelessness are as a result of medical bills?
Yeah.
You know, I have great health care in Germany. I don't need it constantly, but when I've needed it, it has been there, boom, immediately. Although I do complain about Vivande's hospital because it's a pretty terrible place. But you found a better one. And if I ever need a hospital again, I know not to go to Vivande's. They're awful.
No, go to Schloss Park Clinic.
Yeah, that's where I would ask the ambulance to take me. I hope I don't need one, because Milu can detect any changes in my blood sugar levels that might be leading to a pancreatic attack, warn me, and then I can take a simple anti-inflammatory and be done with it. And, he's just an amazing little creature.
Now, we pay for healthcare here but it's means tested. Okay.
Right,
So it just so happens that Adam and I pay a decent amount.
right.
Okay. I have also taken out dental insurance. Okay, because that's not necessarily covered. So I pay an even more decent amount.
Dental insurance, I mean, you have a little bit through TK. You get 50
Yeah, you
euro
do.
back
Yeah,
from
you
each
do.
cleaning, and they'll do basic things. But
Yeah.
I'm going to get a crown while I'm here because I've had a front tooth bonded, and rebonded, and the crown would cost me 2,000 euro in Germany, or with the additional insurance from TK that I could buy, would cost me 1,000, whereas it costs 400 here.
On that subject, on that
Yes.
very subject, on I can't remember which day it was. It was probably Monday. I had a pair of socks and they were brand new. So they had a little plastic thing between them, you know, that's kind of like an enlarged H shape.
Yeah, yeah, I've,
Okay.
I've had those. Yeah.
Yeah, they're small, this big, you know, they just hold the things together, very thin. Okay, like smaller than a pasta. Anyway, a spaghetti. It was on my socks. I naturally put it between my teeth and pulled
Hmm. You broke a tooth.
that one.
Yeah, I've learned to use scissors.
I have now learned to use scissors.
Yeah,
So I made an emergency appointment, which I had for that day. I went to
right,
tea. I went to my dentist, and they very kindly put in a temporary tooth here,
right.
which is going to need a crown. This is temporary. This one,
Okay.
okay. Which I have an appointment on Monday with my dentist to discuss
Right.
all this. It is not. We are not in Bells of Saint whatever. It's Adam's phone going off. And I have dental insurance now. This is an emergency. It's brand new. It just happened. So that will be covered.
This is good.
Yeah,
It's good. Mine would only get a little bit of coverage because it's been going on for 30 years, rebonding, and it's a different situation. It's not a new occurrence. Um,
exactly. Exactly. But
so
so,
I'll get mine in Spain, and the dentist here is wonderful. I really like her.
Yeah, well, I love my dentist, but the point is, I took out dental insurance in December, and then I had this emergency happen, and I'm covered.
Right,
I will
right.
pay anything for it.
This is good.
You
Um,
know,
I, I, I have no problem with paying for insurance if you get value. In the U.S., you pay for insurance and you don't get
oh
value. You don't
boy,
get what you pay for. It's
boy, did
they
I
don't,
get, yeah.
you get screwed. You just pay more. Go to the doctor. There was a story about recently about this guy who died because he couldn't afford 500 for an inhaler. That was the insurance price, 500. Those inhalers are 450 in France, €5 in Germany, €3 in Spain. And in the US, it was $500 with insurance. And he couldn't afford it. And he died for lack of an inhaler. And that kind of stuff goes on routinely. When I had very expensive insurance, my doctor copay was 100. My prescription copay was a minimum of 50. Say I needed an inhaler, it would be a minimum of 50. I used to go to Spain once a year and buy my inhalers for the year rather than pay my copay because it was cheaper to fly to Spain, take a vacation, and purchase them than it was to pay for them there.
Yeah. And I have to say, I mean, as you know, I have significant medical problems.
Yeah.
Okay. And boy, it would take a war to get me out of here because
Yeah, it would take a war to get me out of there as well. And on
it
that
would.
note, we have to say that there's great things about being an expat and say good morning, good night, good evening, good afternoon to you wherever you are in the 25 countries that regularly listen to us.
Are we already over? I think we still have
No,
5 minutes.
no, remember, we have to go short because of the ads.
Oh, sorry about that. You're absolutely right. And I'd like to apologize for the ads, but they are necessary. Yes. So, absolutely. Well, my friends, see you next week where we have a very special guest, I believe.
We are supposed to, yeah. He hasn't responded completely to my invite yet, but they're traveling right now. So we say good night, good morning, good afternoon, and good middle of the night to you wherever you are.
Yes. Thank